It's Tuesday, November 30. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gill. $2 million. That's the estimated loss of revenue for the Jamaica Urban Transit Company, JUTC, from Monday's drivers' strike. The strike, which affected almost the entirety of the company's morning bus schedule, was sparked by last Friday's alleged unfair arrest of a JUTC driver by police. The driver was charged with breaches of the Disaster Risk Management Act, disobeying a constable, and resisting arrest. This left hundreds of commuters in Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine and St. Thomas stranded at bus stops from as early as 5 a.m. Discussions between the management of the state-run bus company and the police diffused the matter. The drivers agreed to return to work before noon. The driver at the center of the incident has been released from police custody and also resumed his duties on Monday. World Health Organization WHO says COVID-19 still remains a threat, and the latest variant, Omicron, poses a high risk of infection surges around the globe. WHO's boss, Dr. Gov't, renewed a call on Monday for a global push to get vaccines to poorer nations. Dr. Gov't says plagues and pandemics are a fact of human life. He says the world is able to prevent and mitigate their impact through science and technology.
From the plague of Athens in 4030 BC to the Black Death, the 1918 influenza pandemic, and now COVID-19. We have the ability to anticipate pandemics, to prepare for them, to unravel the genetics of pathogens, to detect them at their earliest stages, to prevent them spiraling into global disasters, and to respond when they do. And yet, here we are, entering the third year of the most acute health crisis in a century, and the world remains in its grip.
The new variant, labeled Omicron, was detected in South Africa earlier this month.
We don't yet know whether Omicron is associated with more transmission, more severe disease, more risk of reinfections, or more risk of evading vaccines. Scientists at WHO and around the world are working urgently to answer these questions. We shouldn't need another wake-up call. We should all be wide awake to the threat of this virus.
He says we cannot end the pandemic without equitable access to vaccines.
Low-income countries, most of them in Africa, have received just 0.6% of all vaccines. We understand and support every government's responsibility to protect its own people. It's natural. But vaccine equity is not charity. It's in every country's best interests. No country can vaccinate its way out of the pandemic alone. The longer vaccine inequity persists, the more opportunity this virus has to spread and evolve in ways we cannot predict nor prevent.
The WHO says Omicron has an unprecedented number of spike mutations, some of which are concerning for their potential impact on the trajectory of the pandemic. The Ministry of Health and Wellness is conducting a case study on the Cornwall Regional Hospital in St. James. Portfolio Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says Cornwall has been a teachable moment to date. He says the team will be conducting the study because it is a classic case of how not to treat a hospital infrastructure and maybe even a government infrastructure. He was speaking at a recent signing of a contract with M&M Jamaica Limited to complete the second-to-last phase of rehabilitation work at the hospital. This phase of rehabilitation project is being done at a cost close to $1.7 billion. Agriculture and Fisheries Minister Audley Shaw is calling on sugar technologists to use their expertise to help drive growth in the sugarcane industry. He said that research and the application of science and technology was critical to achieving increased production and productivity in the industry. He urged the technologists to use their expertise to identify the right formulations that will lead to the best yields and varieties most suited for cultivation. Increased production, Shaw said, would provide an opportunity to serve the local market as well as the CARICOM market, which is underserved by regional countries. Over the past 3 years, cane grounds has been on the decline, with some 499,000 tons in the 2021 sugarcane season compared to 736,000 tons in 2019. Sugar sales have also decreased, with some 31,000 tons sold in 2021 as against 42,000 tons in 2020. He was speaking at the 84th Annual Conference of Sugar Technologists held at the Sugar Industry Authority Research Division in Mandeville on Thursday. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark painted a positive outlook for Jamaica's economic recovery when he addressed the annual Jamaica Labour Party conference on Sunday. He told attendees that despite challenges posed by the pandemic in 2020, the JLP government has seen high levels of job recovery and growth. The finance minister says all sectors in Jamaica are recovering from the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Tourism and manufacturing, agriculture, wholesale and retail, services, which includes BPO, etc.
He noted the International Monetary Fund's prediction of an economic recovery of more than 8.5% for this fiscal year.
They say that preparation is better than good luck. We went into this crisis in March of 2020 having accumulated significant resources and buffers. We privatized assets, Wigton and Trans-Jamaica Highway, reintegrated PCJ into the parent ministry against the forces of opposition. That gave us over $35 billion in all in fiscal resources. Our fiscal overperformance between 2016 and 2019 meant we had $30 billion in the coffers in addition, which meant that by the time the pandemic came around and our revenues collapsed and were destroyed, we had fiscal resources of over $73 billion on which we could depend.
While he didn't go into details for each sector, he highlighted the improvements within the construction and infrastructure development sector.
Not even the COVID-19 pandemic or the coronavirus or any one of the variants from the Greek alphabet could stop construction booming in Jamaica. Everywhere you look, construction is happening. Everywhere you look, there is a crane. Never before have we ever seen construction like what we are seeing in Jamaica. You would believe there is no COVID. Now, why is this good? This is good because it means construction jobs. It means electricians and masons and carpenters and general construction workers have the means to put food on the table. It means income for the cook shop that supplies the construction workers and for the taximen that drop them off at work in the morning and pick them up in the afternoon. Even the corner shop benefits from the fact that construction is booming in Jamaica.
The government is working on plans to build a new high-security prison. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the announcement on the weekend at the annual JLP conference. He says the facility is being planned in addition to new legislation for the Department of Correction.
I've asked the Minister of National Security to develop and place in the budget for next year the construction of a high-security prison. And it's not high security that you can't escape. Obviously, that's what we mean by high security. But this high security will be that telecommunications will not escape. So it's a high security in the sense that it will be high tech in its ability to prevent external communications. When you get locked down, you get locked down.
Equity, access, and support. Those few words consistently used when authorities are planning and executing programs for youth with disabilities in Jamaica. There have been reports on the difficulties students with disabilities face with online learning in the country. But CEO of the Special Education Unit in the Education Ministry, Dr. Sharon Anderson Morgan, has been working to combat that challenge. She explained her team's work at a recent Youth with Disabilities forum.
The Special Education Unit makes provisions for students with hearing and visual impairments, physical and mental disabilities, learning disabilities, and those who are gifted and talented. The unit's CEO, Dr. Sharon Anderson Morgan, says its role has evolved since the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic.
That involves supervision of schools, providing teaching, learning support, capacity building, and so on. In light of COVID-19, we have had to tailor our efforts to ensuring that students remain connected to the teaching learning program through our various partnerships. We've been able to provide devices. We have had sessions for parents where we try to help our parents, giving them coping strategies. You know, the students are at home and the parents have become almost assistant teachers. And so we've been targeting a lot of our efforts to helping our parents, telling them, how do I get my child to sit down, settle down, pay attention? How do I help to break down the tasks and so on? So these are some of the ways that we have been supporting our parents, and our officers also go into the virtual classrooms, engage the students, give the teachers feedback, help them with making their lessons more accessible digitally and more engaging.
Head of the Jamaica Council of Persons with Disabilities, Dr. Christine Hendricks, says a key place to start with support is knowing the definition of disability.
The Disabilities Act says that it is a person who has a long-term impairment that is either physical, intellectual, mental, or sensory. So persons who are gifted are usually not necessarily persons with disabilities, although there are persons with disabilities who may be gifted. So the ministry deals with children who have disabilities and who do not have disabilities who may be gifted as well.
She says some programs are already in place and persons in need of help can get it once the authorities are made aware.
They needed devices with data, and so we had to partner with our Digital Foundation at the time to ensure that our students got the data and got the devices that they required to enable them to be online for school, and also to enable them to have access to other programs that could benefit them as young people. We also facilitated grants for our young people and adults too, but since we're dealing with young people, the Ministry of Finance provided grants of $10,000 each to persons with disabilities who could have that to, help them to cushion the shocks that the pandemic brought.
Dr. Hendricks says social programs continue to give aid to individuals seeking grants to start businesses and keep the business afloat.
Of course, it's their parents on their behalf, because for the children up to 18, it's the parents on their behalf, and after 18, then they can apply for themselves.
Dr. Hendricks says job security continues to be a challenge for persons with disabilities.
We do have persons with disabilities who have gone to varying levels of education. They have qualified themselves and they have challenged finding jobs. And so we have to continue to advocate to help employers to recognize that persons with disabilities have skills and capabilities too that they can add to an organization, to add value to the output of an organization. And so if persons with disabilities are not seen just for their disability but for their capability, then as a society we would plan for them in every area of life.
She says public education about disabilities and the relative challenges is key.
Professor Gordon Shirley is the new chairman of the board of directors of Clarendon Alumina Partners, CAP. His appointment was approved by the cabinet on Monday. Professor Shirley's appointment to the post follows the resignation of former chairman Norman Reed 2 weeks ago. We get the latest market updates and news in this timely business report from Gabriel Thompson.
In foreign exchange trading for Monday, November 29, the US dollar sold for an average $156.46. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $123.12. The pound sterling traded for $207.51, and the euro sold for an average $179.24. In Monday's trading session, the JUTC combined index advanced by 1,169 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 102 stocks, of which 36 advanced, 50 declined, and 16 traded firm. The junior market index declined by 29 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Barita Investments Limited, Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited, and Carreras Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 1834 Investments Limited, and Access Financial Services Limited. Trading firm were Berger Paints Jamaica Limited, CAC 2000 9.5% preference shares, and Caribbean Producers Jamaica Limited. Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with over 3.4 million units, followed by Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with over 2.8 million units, and JMMB Group Limited with over 700,000 units. In market data for oil, prices tumbled more than 3% on Tuesday after Moderna's CEO cast doubt on the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines against the Omicron coronavirus variant, spooking financial markets and adding to worries about oil demand. The head of drug maker Moderna told the Financial Times that COVID-19 vaccines are unlikely to be as effective against the Omicron variant of the coronavirus as they have been against the Delta variant. Brent crude futures fell $2.32 or 3.2% to $71.12 a barrel after slipping to an intraday low of $70.52, the lowest since September 1. West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell $2.15 or 3.1% to $67.80 a barrel, off a session low of $67.06, the lowest since August 26. Oil plunged around 12% on Friday along with other markets on fears the heavily mutated Omicron could spark fresh lockdowns and dent global oil demand. It is still unclear how severe the new variant is. With a weakening demand outlook, expectations are growing that the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, Russia, and their allies, together called OPEC+, will put on hold plans to add 400,000 barrels per day to supply in January. And with that, we close this Tuesday edition of the Business Report inside the news on PBCJ. I'm Gabriel Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
In regional news, on Monday, Barbados became the world's newest republic, removing the Queen of England as its head of state, severing its colonial bonds with Britain after 396 years of British reign. As the clock struck 12, the royal standard flag representing the Queen was lowered and the declaration was made of Barbados's transition to its new constitutional status. Governor-General Dame Sandra Mason was sworn in as president.
I, Sandra Prunella Mason, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Barbados according to law, so help me God. I, Sandra Prunella Mason, do swear that I will well and truly serve Barbados in the office of President, so help me God.
The Prince of Wales and Barbadian singer Robin Rihanna Fenty attended the event, which coincided with the country's 55th anniversary of independence. In a speech, Prince Charles acknowledged the, quote, appalling atrocity of slavery, end quote, the island had suffered.
I was so deeply touched that you should have invited me to return to Barbados and to join you on behalf of the Queen at this moment of such significance for your remarkable nation. The creation of this republic offers a new beginning, but it also marks a point on a continuum, a milestone on the long road you have not only traveled, but which you have built. From the darkest days of our past and the appalling atrocity of slavery, which forever stains our history, the people of this island forged their path with extraordinary fortitude. Emancipation, self-government, and independence were your waypoints. Freedom, justice, and self-determination have been your guides. Your long journey has brought you to this moment, not as your destination, but as a vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
Rihanna was declared a national hero during the ceremony. Here are the highlights.
On behalf of a grateful nation, but an even prouder people, we therefore present to you the designee for National Hero of Barbados, Ambassador Robin Rihanna Fenty. May you continue to shine like a diamond and bring honor to your nation by your words, by your actions, and to do credit wherever you shall go. God bless you, my dear.
Madam President, as your constitutional status changes, it was important to me that I should join you to reaffirm those things which do not change. For example, that the close and trusted partnership between Barbados and the United Kingdom as vital members of the Commonwealth. Our common determination to defend the values we both cherish and to pursue the goals we share. And the myriad connections between the people of our countries, through which flow admiration and affection, cooperation and opportunity, strengthening and enriching us all. For my part, this is an occasion to reaffirm the friendship I have enjoyed with Barbados since I first visited the island over 50 years ago, and then again while serving in the Royal Navy on the then West Indies station. Across the decades, I have admired so much of what you have achieved and all you have come to represent. I have heard your voice in the world grow louder, advocating with clarity, passion, and authority on issues of global significance. I've seen the power of the indomitable Bajan spirit, both at home and overseas.
Since independence, our heroes and our humble citizens, our crews and passengers have built an international reputation anchored on our characteristics, our national values, our stability, and our successes. Drawing on the lessons of those intervening years, possessing a clear sense of who we are and what we are capable of achieving, in the year 2021, we now turn our vessel's bow towards the new republic. We do this so that we may seize the full substance of our sovereignty. For decades, we have had discourse and debate about the transition of Barbados to a republic. Today, debate and discourse have become action. Today, we set our compass to a new direction, girded by the successes of the last 55 years, buoyed by the confidence garnered from our triumphs and accomplishments, committed to country and to each other, and motivated to press confidently and boldly forward for the sake of our nation and for present and future generations. We stand on and claim our traditions, heritage, and patrimony earned by the sweat of Bajan brows and inherited from our forefathers. As we celebrate all that is good in us as a people and travel onward, we must avoid the trap of merely reliving, retelling, and relying on our past achievements as a nation.
Salute to Barbados! Present! Arms!
In sports, we open the innings with cricket. West Indies men's team is currently on tour in Sri Lanka and locked in a two-match test series with the hosts. The Windies lost the first match but have so far been on better footing in the second match, which began on Monday. Veerasamy Permaul's 5-wicket haul put Sri Lanka in trouble, with the West Indies batting openers already chasing down the hosts' lead by early tea on day 2 of the second test in Gully on Tuesday. Permaul and fellow left-arm spinner Jomel Warakan, who claimed 4 for 50, cut through the Sri Lankan order on a wicket with plenty of turn and bounce. Openers Craig Brathwaite and Jermaine Blackwood stood more resolute against Sri Lanka's spin attack, which had demolished the tourists' top order in their 187-run first test loss. And that's the news on PBCJ. Thanks so much for watching.